this beautiful morning in Bemidji, having a conversation with our tribal leaders from the Red Lake and White Lake reservations. It's been a really revealing and heartbreaking conversation. We learned the ways in which treaty rights have been disregarded. We learned the ways in which intimidations and exploitation has taken place. We learned the ways in which the Line 3 pipeline will disrupt the livelihood and the future of the tribal communities that it will impact. Yesterday, we had lots of conversations about what this pipeline will do to not only the Native communities of Minnesota, but to the rest of us who live on the Mississippi, whether you are in Minnesota or downstream. It is unconscionable for us to see zero action being taken by our governor and president in stopping this pipeline. We know that this pipeline is going to impact 1,000 acres of water. It will touch 211 bodies of water. The kind of catastrophe that awaits us is avoidable. It is easy, I think, oftentimes for government to come back and apologize and find ways to do right by communities it harms. But it's more challenging for government to do the right thing in listening to these communities when they tell them the possibility of something going wrong and prevent that from happening in the first place. None of our communities who have been engaged in this battle want to come back and say, I told you so, after the spills take place and our water is polluted and the number of people who get cancer and get sick from it increases. A lot of people have said time has run out, that this pipeline is 90% finished. But the resilient water protectors and the native tribes that have welcomed us into their spaces tell us time never runs out on fighting for what is right. They tell us about the generational fight that they have engaged with the US government to understand that treaties are the supreme law of the land and that their sovereignty needs to be protected. And that for many of us, we say water is life, but for them, that is a spiritual belief. They are of the water and they live on this land because of the water. And so I feel obligated to honor their life and sacrifice. And I also feel honored to be joined by colleagues who understand that not only is water life, but that Native sovereignty is important, and that we, as elected officials, have a constitutional obligation to protect treaty rights. And so I want to welcome some of my colleagues who have traveled from across the country to be in community with our siblings. I will start with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts.
I thank Senator Kunish, Representative Omar, for the invitation to be on sacred land with these sacred people, with water protectors and tribal leaders. It has been a spiritual experience, a transformative one, an educational one. And I know that there has been some commentary about why exactly we're here and why not and why now. And I do believe that the systematic oppression of marginalized people, whether you're talking about Black Americans or Indigenous people, it has been precise, exact, often legislated, and is very similar. In the district which I represent in Massachusetts, there were efforts to build highways to destabilize families, to separate communities. Those highways may have still been built, but we fought. We fought in resistance nonetheless. Why did they seek to build those highways in low-income and Black communities, or to make them residents to toxic waste dumps or level 4 biolabs in residential communities, rather than to attempt such egregious violations, human rights violations, civil rights violations, environmental injustices? We know that these things would not happen in white or wealthy communities. So our destinies are tied, our oppression intersectional, and that's why I am here. That's why we are here. In the last year, in the midst of this global pandemic, which has resulted in colossal loss of life, a burden disproportionately borne by Native people, a pandemic-induced recession, which has caused unprecedented hardship, against the backdrop of a so-called national reckoning on racial injustice. And that's why we're here. We're here to be more than allies. We're here to be intentional accomplices, co-conspirators in the work of justice, to affirm Native sovereign rights, tribal rights, and treaties, contracts that have been broken and violated, a people that have been violated, who have experienced undue brutality, simply for asking this nation to honor its promise and to honor its treaties. One of the tribal leaders earlier today said that they support this president. And I want to affirm that, because very often when we dissent, our patriotism, our party loyalty is questioned. And he said that he supports this president, but we shall hold him accountable. If we are truly in the midst of a national reckoning on racial injustice, then what allyship looks like is certainly more than hashtags and nicely worded statements and statement t-shirts. Change and justice will not be realized by what we say. It will be realized by what we do. And we implore President Biden to practice racial justice, to practice climate justice, to honor the sovereignty of the Native people, to honor these treaties, and to honor the land. These are human rights violations, civil right violations, and a threat to the public health. We should not have to organize and be in resistance for clean water. But that is the fight, and I'm honored to stand alongside these sacred, righteous people and my colleagues in government for this fight. And again, we implore President Biden to halt the permits of this project. It is not too late. Stop construction of the Line 3 pipeline. Stop the criminality of Enbridge. It is not too late for as long as there is still no oil flowing through these pipelines. And so we will continue to fight. And now I will turn the microphone over to my colleague representing Michigan, Representative Rashida Tlaib, who has been a leader in this fight and against the criminality of Enbridge for Line 5.
Thank you so much to Senator Knut and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar for inviting us to come and speak to our Indigenous communities here in Minnesota. It was heartbreaking yesterday to hear a mother break down in tears talking about the future for her daughters. It was heartbreaking to hear a 13-year-old speak about the fact that he has a right to live and to have access to wild rice, which gives him economic stability in a future. And so much of those stories, I think, are yet to be told in regards to Line 3 and the devastation to our tribes and the devastation to our land and our climate. I think it's really important that President Biden understands that this decision around being silent is devastating these communities. It is hurting them. And if anything, especially because the experience that we've had in Michigan is that Enbridge believes they're above the law. They're not. They are not above the law. They had a right to notice, which was flawed here. They had a right to be able to have their treaties abided by, and they weren't here. They had a right to understand exactly what was literally behind closed doors, what those decisions were being made, and they weren't. And these are families and communities that are fighting just like any of us are to a future, to a better quality of life, and so much more. And all of that is being cut short because corporate greed is coming, capitalism is coming before the livelihood of people that have lived off this land. I think it's important as I come into this space that I shared with all of you, our experience with Enbridge in Michigan. There is no safe way to do this work that they continue to say. I mean, we see it during their construction period, and we're going to continue to see it moving forward. This is unsafe. This is going to impact not only our climate, y'all, but also our water, our access to clean drinking water. And just again, I just thank you all for being vulnerable and talking so much about that truth, about the fact that you're not going to be able to provide wild rice, to be able to provide for your families, the fact that you are worried about the land and all the harm that comes with putting this devastating pipeline through it. So I just want you all to know, I heard you even this morning saying we just need a voice. And it's unfortunate that folks here in the state have turned their backs on these Indigenous communities. But I'm not going to, and I know my colleagues stand with me in saying that we're going to continue to fight and hold President Biden accountable in understanding this is directly impacting our climate, but also that no corporation, no matter how much money or influence they have, are above the law, and treaties must be respected. Thank you. With that, our wonderful advocate from Missouri, who constantly is centered on saving lives, and this is so interconnected with her mission. With that, Corey Bush.
Good morning. So my sisters have already kind of alluded to a question we were asked a few times about why are you here? I guess one point is, when did 90% equal 100%? I don't know where, in whose book 90 is also 100. If you get 90% on the test, you did not get a 100. If you do 90% of the work, you don't get the full benefit, because you didn't get to 100. So we're not at 100 yet. So that's one. The other part is, when do we get to say that someone's voice should not be heard simply because you're not from this community? That you shouldn't listen because you're not from this community. You can't understand because you're not from a community. If we just look at what can happen, first of all, our work is to save lives. Our work is to love on humanity. If we are anyone that is in elected office, your first charge should be just to love humanity. And if that is a problem for you, if there is a lack of understanding at what that looks like, then maybe that's the conversation we should be having. And so, because we understand that we love humanity, and people are crying out for help and asking for answers and asking for advocates who may not live where they live, but the fact that they're asking for people who don't live where they live to come in and also listen and also take that information back, what that says is there was not enough advocacy within the community of those that could be doing the direct work, or they needed help. They needed reinforcement. They needed someone to come in and commune. And so that's why we're here. 18 million people directly affected by the water, by the Mississippi River. 18 million people. 18 million people. So to tell us that we should not care, to tell someone who lives by the Mississippi River, in my own community, in St. Louis, in my district, to tell me that I should not care, to tell us that we shouldn't care. Instead of telling us we shouldn't care and we shouldn't be here, you should be here standing with us, regardless of politics and partisanship. We should be standing together, because if I don't have water, you don't have water. If they don't have water, another group does not have water. So we should be standing together in this fight. But we are all so grateful to be here learning and listening from our brothers and sisters, and including today from the leaders of Red Lake and White Earth communities. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for coming to share with us. We're here because none of us are alone in this work to save the lives of our communities. To the Indigenous leaders who have taken the time to share their wisdom and their struggle with us, you are not alone. Listening to the calls, listening to how long these efforts have been taking place, listening to the amount of times that we were told people have listened and not much has happened. We're honored to be here, to lend whatever we can lend, whatever is in our toolbox, whatever lever. And as we learn about the courageous and long struggle to stop Line 3, we stand here today to say we will not let up. The work of water warriors is our work too. I say that because our struggles, they are linked, because we too have had our water violated in Black neighborhoods. The water in my community has been knowingly violated with radioactive waste since before I was born. In St. Louis, Coldwater Creek floods public school playgrounds, endangering our children with U.S. military waste. Your struggle is our struggle because the climate crisis is heating up and flooding all of our communities first and worst. Your struggle is our struggle because the headquarters of the largest coal companies in the country are right near my home in St. Louis at a time when we should never be building fossil fuel infrastructure again. We have the technology, we have the resources, we have the leadership of our country's indigenous and black communities who understand that President Joe Biden needs to do the right thing to prevent a climate catastrophe. Your struggle is our struggle because Enbridge has already spilled in our shared river. And what they've shared will flow down to our community. We live on the Mississippi River too. And today, we're coming together to send a clear message to our president, President Joe Biden, to stop Line 3. So thank you to all of you who have been resisting, who have been brutalized, who have been mocked, who have been shamed, who have been pushed back, who've been neglected. Thank you on behalf of your communities, but also for resisting on behalf of every single one of us, including on behalf of my district, the people of St. Louis. Thank you. Thank you for working to save Indigenous lives and Black lives and all of our lives, even those who cannot speak up for themselves, even those who don't understand the value of your work. Your work is for them as well, and that is to be honored and that is to be noted. So thank you all for inviting us to this space. And next we will have someone who has been working has been doing this work for quite some time and has opened our eyes up that we have been able to travel with over the last 24 hours or so, Senator Mary Kunesh.
Ehani Washte. I'm Senator Mary Kunesh from Minnesota. I represent District 41 and am a descendant of the Standing Rock Nation. We saw what happened out at Standing Rock with DAPL. We saw how the oil line destroyed that community, how it polluted that community. And so 6 years ago, when I was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives, I was introduced to this issue around Line 3 by legislators that were passionate about pushing back against it and not allowing this to happen. And over the years at the legislature, more and more of us legislators have joined on to this fight and have done what we can to push back against Enbridge's Line 3. Because we saw the environmental impacts that it was having in such a negative way. We saw the effects, the rise in violence against our Native women that were murdered or went missing or were raped or violated in other ways, disrespected in so many ways. We saw the way that it destroyed communities, split communities, because of the influence of money and promises of riches down the line. I was raised to appreciate and take care of our environment. Our role is to ensure that we leave this land that we live on, this world that we participate in better condition than when we left, so that the next 7 generations have clean land, clean air, clean water, have a good life that some of us have been able to experience now. We know that the pipelines always leak. There is never a time that a pipeline has not leaked. Sometimes extremely catastrophic, just as we saw in Michigan, just as we saw in South Dakota. This cannot happen here in Minnesota. And so for those that have been working so hard for so long, I just want to say Wopa Latanka, and I want to say thank you to the allies, to the water protectors, to the lawyers, to the legislators, to our federal government folks that have worked in one way or the other to prevent this from happening. But unfortunately, that has not happened because that pipeline got shoved through the most beautiful lands here in Minnesota. It sucked up water, precious water, during a time where we are experiencing the most incredible drought. It took resources from the communities and allowed Enbridge to undermine every aspect of local municipal government. And that is not the kind of Minnesota I want to see. It's not the kind of Minnesota the majority of Minnesotans want, and it's not the world that I want to leave to my grandchildren and their children. And so coming up here and being able to show these federal elected officials the beauty of Minnesota, from the Twin Cities all the way up here, to hear the voices of the people most affected by this pipeline and the injustices that have been done, to hear of all the hard work, people that put their mind, their body, their professions on the front line for the right reason. It's just been such an honor to be able to do. And so I do say once again, Wopalatanka, Chimigwich, Pinagigi, to all of these women that came here, that understand the social and the environmental injustice that has been happening here for the last 6 years, because they themselves have lived it in so many ways. And I hope that when they go back to Washington, D.C., that they take these voices, these stories, their new learned experience to Joe Biden, to the government, and recognize that we are not done here yet. And I don't know that we'll ever be done. If even one drop of oil goes through those pipelines, it starts a whole new process. And I hope that all of you will stay with us, that all of these people behind us will not give up. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're worn out, they're demoralized, they're scared. But they are fighters. They are water protectors. And for that, we as a state and as a nation must be eternally grateful. And so this has been a wonderful 2 days coming up here and look at this beautiful sky. Look at the beautiful lands around us. Feel that wonderful breeze. This is what's at stake here. So let's make sure that we do have this beautiful world for the next 7 generations. And so with that, I would like to invite Tara Huska back up here and say a few words, one of our incredible water protectors and champions of our environment. Thank you.
I'm actually just going to hand it off to the elected tribal leaders who are here. So with that, Red Lake or Secretary Sam Strong, would you like to go first?
Well, bonjour, Bimosei Gnu Indigenous, Mokwan Dudem, Misquagami Weezagani and Donjaba. My name is Sam Strong. I'm Secretary of the Red Lake Nation. And I'm here to say today that it's been too long that our treaties have been violated. It's been too long that we've been marginalized and ignored. Our treaties are protected under the United States Constitution, Article 6. They need to be heard. Our voice needs to be heard. This Line 3 expansion project was forced through our lands. We were not consulted. We have asked the federal government to perform a federal EIS, and they have ignored our request. We have asked them to hear of the plight of our people, the plight of our wild rice gatherers, the plight of those that wish to live in harmony with nature, to live in a way that allows us to sustainably live with everything around us, with the water, with our food, with our brothers and sisters. Climate change is no longer deniable. Climate change is impacting us on a daily basis. We see it with the hurricanes. There was a time this summer where we didn't see the sun for a week. Our air quality was over 350. Our children couldn't go outside and play. This Line 3 expansion project will create emissions equivalent of 50 coal-powered power plants. We are asking our government to take an action that will protect our children and those generations to come. Half measures would no longer do us well. We must take action. We must listen to the wisdom of our ancestors, to the wisdom of those environmentalists, to the wisdom of our grandmothers and our families. We must listen to the words of our respected congresswoman here. They speak the truth. We speak the truth. It is time that corporate greed no longer is the powerful force that it is in our country. It is time that we no longer allow for that corruption to continue. It is time that we stand up for our children. And it's time that we stand up for our communities. And I want to say miigwech for you for coming out here. For I believe we are all part of this solution. And if we are going to turn the tide of climate change that is impacting us all, we must realize the truth. So miigwech. I'd like to introduce Raymond Aganash from the White Earth Tribal Council.
Bonjour, good afternoon. My name is Raymond Aganash. I am from the White Earth Tribal Council, the District 1 representative. Alongside of me here, I got our District 1 people who are our water protectors. Our women are our main water protectors. These ladies have been on the front lines fighting since day one. But yet also, we have been fighting. There's many aspects fighting against this line. Not only White Earth, but our brothers and sisters, Red Lake, are fighting this line. And this line, if it happens to break, is going to do away with our wild rice. And that's our food that grows on the water. And this was given to us by our Creator. And it's a very nutritional food. I'm sure a lot of you have tried it, ate it, and loved it. I know I do. I know our people do. And that's why we are out here today to say, let's stop this Line 3. You know, we're not against our president, but we ask him, help us out, because our native vote counts. In these last elections, our native vote was one of the top ones who elected a lot of our officials, our governor, our lieutenant governor. So today, we stand out here and we ask, come on, people, help us out. We're not here to look out for ourselves, but we're looking out for our future generations. Because if we don't put a stop to this Line 3 now, the oil, who's to say that our children may have to start finding a way to do away with this oil to make it so it's drinkable, so that it can't be used as gas and everything. We may have to look at it as being something that we got to find a way to make it drinkable. And that's wrong. It's totally wrong. And I'm sure these ladies would, but I asked them to be alongside of me today because they are our water protectors, and they will continue to fight just as we will, along with our brothers and sisters from Red Lake. But White Earth is now on the cutting edge of working with solar energy. We are looking into solar energy because we're tired of this oil. We're tired of all that stuff. We want green energy, and we will become a part of this. And when we do, we're not only going to look out for ourselves, we're looking out for all our other brothers and sisters under the Minnesota Super Tribe. We have asked them to join us in getting into this green energy. I just got back from a meeting yesterday in the cities, meeting with different lawyers, different people. How do we get into this green energy? How do we get it? There's millions of dollars in this green energy. And we as a White Earth tribe we're going to take it on ourselves. But we thought, no, if we can profit off of this, just like Enbridge is profiting off of our lands, off of our, why come through Minnesota? Why didn't you go through Canada? That's where the money's at. That's where you had your money at. But you come through and you decide to wreck our rice fields. One leak out of that oil line is going to destroy so many of our rice fields. So with that, I just like to say, that we're not here as we were at the Capitol and these ladies had joined us down there. And we're not here to start trouble. We're here as peace. Our treaties have been stepped on since day one, the day they wrote them treaties. The next day, they were already violating those treaties. Back in the day, it was a handshake by our native people, and that was good enough for us. Then all of a sudden, they come out with all these big fancy treaties and all this stuff. What's the sense of having them if they're not going to give us those rights? That's the way I see it. And like I said, we're not here to cause trouble. We're here as a peaceful protesters to open up people's eyes to say, come on, help us in fighting these pipelines. Big glitch. I think Frank did.
Frank, do you want to talk first?
For a minute. You want to come up, Joe?
Oh, it's okay.
All right, bud.
His shirt.
You gotta have the fish. Good afternoon. This is a very amazing moment for me. I'm actually in a crowd of people who are concerned about what's happening to our planet, to our water, to our air. And they're concerned about stopping Line 3. One of the reasons I've been asked to speak today is because yesterday the federal court ruled that the DNR cannot just duck out on our filing of a complaint against them in tribal court. This hasn't really been done before the way we're doing it, but it's easy to see that with the people who are trying, that it may very well be the key to environmental protection across a lot of Indian territories. And if we can exercise our rights properly before they actually put the oil into the pipe, we can stop this project. They still need water to do a lot of what they're doing. They've stolen 5 billion gallons of water from our environment for Enbridge, and that's why we sued the DNR. We've sued them for other things as well, but we know that they're all part and complicit in a conspiracy to deprive us of the water, to deprive us of our resources, to deprive us of our rights. And so for those reasons, we filed against them in tribal court, and we'll probably have to seek enforcement in federal court ultimately, but we will be pursuing justice and we will be stopping this pipeline. And so, as other people have asked, we need other people to come and stand with us and protect the environment. I'm glad to see the people coming from Congress to come out here and help us. And they've heard. We've received no justice from the federal government with the Corps of Engineers. We've received no justice from the state of Minnesota. We've had to come up with our own creations of law to protect nature because nobody else is. Just people. It's just people, and so it's going to take people. Thank you very much.
Bonjour everybody, my name is Silas Lee and I'm 13 years old. I am from the White Reservation and I joined the fight in Stop Line 3 as an Anishinaabe. We do rely on the Mississippi for some of our drinking water. This pipeline is 13 miles away from the world's largest wild rice lake. I want to speak about the trauma that happens on the front line. As my sister Tara here has been shot and maced. Our two-spirit relative was sexually assaulted by a cop. They've been using pain compliance while torturing people as they put their body on the line. As our people have been tortured like that, President Biden, he sits in the White House silent. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and Governor Tim Walz, they sit silent. We will not be put up with that. And I'm going to ask you one more time, stop Line 3. Glitch.
My name is Sarah Huska. I'm Bear Clan from Cushing First Nation and Anishinaabe. And yeah, I wanted to stand with our young people. That's who's been out there on the line for so long. I'm really grateful that you guys are all here and you brought your platforms and your power and your energy and your hearts. Most importantly, it feels good to stand in community and not feel like we're asking, but feeling like we're looking for solutions instead. But to the rest, it's been a fight where it's, what is it going to take? How many times do Native people have to say no? How many times? There's 68,000 comments in the regulatory process against Line 3. That's Minnesotans, that's allies, that's everybody that's involved in this struggle. And then there's the legal process. There's all these different lawsuits. I mean, almost what we're closing in on a dozen lawsuits filed. And still the doors have been shut again and again. And then we finally got one that's open because the Wild Rice is now suing. And then there's the Native Nations themselves saying no. And the Army Corps coming and kind of just passing the buck along. How many times do Indian people have to say no before we're respected? How many times do we have to say no for other people to listen to us? And to feel like the fact that we're sitting on Native land everywhere we are in Turtle Island is true for us all. That this country exists because of Native people. That everywhere you go is sacred land. Everywhere you stand belongs to somebody. Somebody's heart is there. Somebody's footsteps of their ancestors are there. And that we are not sacrifice zones just because we have been almost genocided out of existence. How many times do we have to keep telling everyone what the climate science is when the sky is full of smoke and the sun is red and our kids can't go outside, right? Like that's been this, and then the empty rivers that are full of puddles and now chemicals from Line 3 spilling already into the rivers. What is it going to take for people to wake up? What is it going to take for them to understand Hurricane Ida is killing all these people all over Turtle Island, and the wildfires are all around us, and it's been that way in the global south for a long time, but it was black and brown bodies, and now it's all here, right? So what is it actually going to take for us to wake up and see, yeah, it's just one pipeline. That's what Governor Walz's excuse is lately. He's touting that line. It's just one pipeline. It's not going to stop climate crisis. It's going to make it worse. That's the science. There is no questioning that. So what's it going to take for us to actually stop doing what we've been doing as so-called westernized society, destroying ourselves in real time, affecting the rest of the world, 50 coal-fired plants, all the different emissions associated with the project, a 10% expansion of the tar sands. What's it going to take to say, hey, you know what, maybe we should do something different? Maybe because this pipeline is 90% along, okay, well, let's send a message to the fossil fuel industry that they should have listened at the beginning, that they should have respected Indigenous sovereignty at the beginning, that they should have respected climate science at the beginning. And that's too bad about your investment. That is too bad. At what point do we say you cannot do this? This is a violation of not only human rights, this is morally a crime against all of humanity, against everyone that needs clean air to breathe and water to drink and soil to grow food. That's every human being that walks this earth. I'm sitting up here with scars from rubber bullets that were paid for by Enbridge. I shouldn't have had to do that. None of us should have had to do that. None of us should be carrying the trauma of standing and watching people's heads getting split open and police officers using pain compliance and torturing people. That's what's happening to water protectors in real time. Do we want to live in a world where water protectors are all in jail as the world is burning outside past the bars? That's what's happening. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. Indigenous people are leading these fights all over the globe, telling the rest of the world, this is happening. Stand with us, protect the last beautiful places that remain. Thank you for coming. I hope it smacks the president again and says, hey, we're still fighting, that our sovereignty is to be respected, that our people to be respected, and that what you are doing is morally wrong. And we deserve better. We deserve leadership, and what's happening is not leadership. We can't mitigate climate crisis. So, ho, miigwech. I'd like to bring up Don Goodwin to go to space.
Bonjour, Kagaya, Shiki Dishnikas. Kawaba, Biganikag, and Dunjaban. My name is Everlasting Wind, and I live on White Earth on the lower Rice Lake. I've given 13, since 2013, I've given 8 years of my life to push back on Enbridge's bad ideas. It started in 2013 with the Sandpiper. At the same time, it was introduced as a Line 3 as a replacement project. I'm here to tell you this is not a replacement project. It is a relocation and an expansion of the tar sands industry. Enbridge has inundated our communities with misleading half-truth ads. They say that this is the most studied pipeline, but what they don't tell you is what is in that study. I'll share you one thing. Every route was a detriment and harmful to the Native American communities. Every route. And some of those routes weren't even studied because they had their preferred route. Where I live, we watched it unfold. We watched collusion happen between city, county, state, and now our federal government just standing by. And we had a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're still waiting to hear back. These treaties have been ignored for so long. The people think it's okay. We're here to say it's time now to honor those treaties as the supreme law of the land. I have 5 citations. In December, I broke my arm. I have plates and pins in my arm. Do I have to go out and put my body further on the line and risk maybe my arm being pulled out from the pins and plates so that I can protect the water in our future? As a Wolf Clan member, it's my duty, inherent duty, to protect the environment and the people. I can't stop. I have no choice. So do I have to go out and risk further pain? Will I be tortured and harmed more than I already have been? I lost my mother. It was 2 months ago. I was waiting for us to win and beat Line 3, for things to slow down, so I could spend more time with her. She's gone now. I'll never get that time back. It makes me angry. They did not listen. We've been telling them every step of the way, no. This is not what we need. You've not proven that you need this oil. And Enbridge twisted that criteria, and it was against the law for them to use the current Line 3 in their decision. but they will steam ahead and put this pipeline through before we can have our days in court. And we foresee they'll do the same thing as they did with Dakota Access Pipeline, that when the court does rule in our favor, they will not listen. It's time to listen. We've been there every step of the way, pushing back, saying no. And what we found, that it was regulatory capture. And we're standing up against that. And we call on the rest of the people, because that's all we have. We have people power. So we're calling on you to do what you can to help. Because tar sand sinks in water. And they have put line 3 in the most beautiful, water-rich environment. I didn't think it could ever happen when everything was laid out. But it did. So we need to stop. How can a foreign corporation buy 1855 lands and be allowed to run poison, carcinogenic tar sands oil that sinks in water? So not only are we worried about that risk of spill, but it also puts extra carbon into our atmosphere, putting our elements out of balance. We are out of balance. It's time to wake up. Everybody, it's time to wake up. No more this me, I need. We have to think about the future. And 60 years ago, the people were told, got to cut back on that fossil fuels. But people did not listen. And so here we are, 60 years later, saying the same thing. The time is now. Respect and honor, uphold those treaties. Miigwech.
Thanks, everyone, for your powerful testimony. Thank you all for joining us. We are actually running late, so we're not able to take any questions. We might be able to answer questions at the Headwaters Crossing if you are so inclined to join us. Thank you.